I know we often think of rules in the negative, right? Don't do this or don't do that. In other words, we look at rules as so restrictive, but rules also inspire action and creativity. My dear friend, it is awesome to be here with you. Well done for taking the moment to watch this short video. Your question is important, maybe more important than you think. Why are there so many rules? And I get it, because whether you're talking about classroom rules or school rules or sport rules or family rules or road laws or even etiquette rules. For example, one of my boys just started playing tennis, and I learned that it's a no-no to make noise while someone is in the act of serving, or that you're not really supposed to cheer while a point is being played. You gotta wait. Rules change depending on the situation. For example, in boxing or MMA, there is no rule that prohibits you from throwing a haymaker at somebody's face. But in basketball or football or soccer, in a classroom or in the middle of an orchestra class, that kind of behavior is not looked upon with a lot of excitement and can actually have some pretty serious consequences. But in the National Hockey League, right, even though fighting is still punished with a penalty, it's not really a big deal. So rules and laws change, but based on where you live, where you go to school, or what activities you do. But I think there's a lot of good rules and also some pretty silly rules that are unnecessary. Sometimes creativity and advancement actually require some bending and even breaking of rules. For example, in classical music, there has been a musical progression from Baroque to classical to romantic and now to modern. And to go from one phase to the other, rules had to be bent and broken, and as a result, new styles of music, beautiful music, emerged. Sometimes in education, it's the same way. What worked before doesn't necessarily work now. By the way, just for fun, can I give you some short examples that I found of some, what I feel, I guess, are some pretty meaningless laws and rules. For example, in California, it's illegal for you to set a mouse trap without a hunting license. You got to get that license, people. In Arkansas, alligators must not be kept in bathtubs. So if that's something you were looking forward to doing, don't do it there. In Boise, Idaho, residents may not fish from a giraffe's back. That's no bueno. In Kentucky, every citizen is required to take a shower once a year. You got to manage that hygiene. Am I right? And in Kalamazoo, Minnesota, it's against the law to serenade your girlfriend. Girls, I'm sorry. So poets, musicians, and romantics, no serenading in Kalamazoo. By the way, how cool is the name of that town? As you can see, there are some rules that are just meaningless and that don't make a lot of sense. So why do we have rules? Let me give you 3 reasons and just think it through a little bit. Number 1, to protect yourself and others. And maybe you don't think a lot about that, but one good reason for rules is to keep people safe and to promote respect, whether it's in a classroom or walking down the halls of your school or at a football game or on the playground. Rules are there to protect you and others physically and also protect your right to feel safe, to get an education. Rules like no weapons in school, no fighting, treating others with respect, no yelling or screaming in class, raising your hand when you have a question, being on time, don't damage property or break stuff, and being honest. These rules are like lines on a soccer pitch or on a tennis court or bumpers in a bowling alley. They don't only create mental expectations for you and I, but they also keep us in the game. In some situations, we have to know the rules and learn to play and find success within those rules. I know we often think of rules in the negative, right? Don't do this or don't do that. In other words, we look at rules as so restrictive, but rules also inspire action and creativity. Just because there's an outline on a football field doesn't mean that we can't construct and run millions of creative and legendary plays within those lines. Like Mr. Jack Sparrow said, the problem is not the problem. The problem is your attitude about the problem. As always, my friends, your mindset and perspective about a thing matters more than the thing itself. Remember that. Okay, number 2, to help people cooperate and keep things from slipping into madness and chaos. I know that was a bit dramatic, but look, whether you're playing Monopoly or engaging in war or an orchestra or taking a test or driving on the road or flying in the air, there are rules that we as people, that you as students and as a society that we live by, that honestly make life so much simpler, so much smoother, and that actually afford us so much more freedom. There are rules in game that allow us to play without having to fight every 5 seconds because the rules are just flimsy and not structured. How many of you would jump on an airplane if there weren't any rules about flying and altitude and coordinates, and if instead you just relied on luck to make sure you didn't run into other planes. Imagine driving in LA or New York City or Hong Kong or wherever you are without any traffic laws and rules. Man, where you pretty much do your own thing and fly by the seat of your pants. Well, talk about traffic jams, accidents, and road rage, am I right? Think of rules like agreements. And when we agree, like driving on the right side of the road, or left side, I guess if you live in England, we can cruise. But when we don't, man, it gets messy quickly. Number 3, rules promote success. Now, I don't know if we've ever looked at it that way, but I've been a soccer coach for years, and honestly, I love it. And to me, there's nothing more beautiful than when 11 players on the field move together as a machine, as one. When every player plays their position and engages in the system in a creative and awesome way, that team becomes incredibly hard to beat. And more importantly, they move more confidently and score more consistently. When they're disconnected and start to break down on the fundamentals of soccer, aka our team rules, right? It turns into jungle ball. And all of a sudden, soccer is no longer the beautiful game. I'm sure you've noticed, but at your school, there are some rules, right? Attendance rules, behavior rules, dress code rules, rules for your phone, rules about being prepared, about being respectful, about being considerate, about helping others, about being honest. There are rules. And maybe some of these rules, thou shalt not chew gum in thy class, or thou shalt not put thy feet upon thy desk, are less important than others. But these rules help you to play the beautiful game of life. And when you're willing to make basic agreements like, yeah, not everything is about me. I'll be considerate and respectful of other people, or I'll be honest, or I'm not crazy about the dress code, but I can make an agreement about that, or I'll go to class and participate. Then things run smoothly and more effectively for everyone. The opposite is also true. If you choose to fight every single rule just for the sake of resisting and being difficult, you're going to cause yourself misery and potentially others as well. And honestly, that doesn't seem incredibly wise to me. To be honest, I am not here to convince you to just be this compliant rule follower. Instead, what I hope you will do is use your highest intelligence to make the kinds of choices that will ultimately benefit you and others the very most. Sabotaging yourself and others is not a good strategy. It's like the man who digs a hole only to find himself falling into it over and over and over again. Why would we do that? What are we trying to prove? That we're not going to obey the man or the woman? I agree with you. There are so many cultural norms and society rules that are simply silly and honestly not super helpful. And when you find those, sure, like do something different, even become an activist for something that you truly believe. We are indebted to people who are courageous like that. People like Nelson Mandela or Gandhi, or like the Buddha, like Martin Luther King, like Mother Teresa, Oprah, Jesus, like Taylor Swift. I was wondering if you were paying attention. I got your attention now, right? But you know what? Even Taylor had to break down some of her own rules, right? And evolve as a musician. And if that girl were the man, she would be the man. Okay, I admit I've gone too far. You know what I'm saying. If you see some rules that are harming you, harming others, that are hypocritical or discriminatory, that limit your ability to do good, to progress, to grow, to succeed, then by all means, man, it's time for you to begin to have some conversations with the right people and to begin pushing for some exceptions to that rule, or to get rules changed altogether. You're not a robot, you're not a sheep, you're a lion. But even lions have rules. Be wise and choose to follow the rules that open doors for your future and that contribute to others. And I dare say, if you do that, man, you're going to be in good hands. Be wise, be intelligent, do things on purpose instead of just accidentally. Ease up on your complaining and instead offer up solutions. Lift where you are, and you're going to reap an awesome life and awesome relationships.